Hello, everyone. Welcome to yet another edition of Know Your Changemakers. And it's a delight for me to kind of be the host one more time. And I have a very special guest in front of all of you today. My guest on the show today is Neville Postwala. He's the head of HR at Harbinger Group and is playing a strategic role that enables the company achieve its critical objectives over the years, right? And he's responsible for the entire talent management function, compensation and benefits, leadership hiring, behavioral skills, competence creating world-class award-winning HR automated platforms, talent branding, internal corporate communication, amongst a host of other things. And Neville is an industry veteran. He comes in with a lot of experience from the industry and spent a lot of time within the HR function itself. He's the alumni of SIBM as well. So it's a delight to have you with us today, Neville.
Thank you, Ravi. Thanks. Good to be here.
Pleasure. As the narrative goes, the intent of Know Your Changemakers is not just talk about how we're driving HR transformation, but also know the leader in person, right? And understand a bit
Yes.
about them, what their journey about, how their career has shaped up, and that's something which also is something which the community would like to know. So from that perspective, let's start off with the first one that I had in mind, right? Of course, I'll obviously come to Harbinger also at some point in time during the discussion. First question which I had, having a formal background in commerce, right? I mean, how has this academic foundation helped you integrate business strategies with HR tech solutions? Because we say a lot about business acumen. Has commerce had a role to play in this entire scheme of things?
Really not sure about that, Ravi. So here's a thing that you may not know about me that I did my commerce externally.
Okay,
I rarely went to college. I was an external student. But
right.
along with that, what I did as mainstream was hotel management. So I
Okay,
did 3 years of hotel management, and
right.
sitting at home externally, I did my BCom.
Right.
I Yes, I did my hotel management because of my passion of food, and actually, I worked in a hotel for a couple of years after that.
Right.
It was good fun, a lot of hard work, but I
Yeah.
think over there is when I developed that service orientation,
Okay.
which I think being in an enabling support or a supporting function role, I think having a service orientation is kind of good.
Mm.
So that stint in the hotel actually helped me a bit. I got the opportunity to work with different kind of people from various high profile levels of society. And in
Mm.
the hotel industry, the mantra is customer is the king.
Absolutely.
Um,
Yeah.
and I think this kind of service-based work ethics and orientation has actually helped me in right now.
Mm.
I guess I'm an accidental HR professional because
Okay.
after working for a couple of years in the hotel industry, I realized I like to eat food more than serve it. So it wasn't a long time. It wasn't a long-term goal profession for me. And that time,
Right.
MBA was the buzzword.
Right.
So I kind of applied for MBA, and I got into MPM, which is Masters in Personal Management.
Hmm. Hmm.
And yeah, that's how my HR journey started. So
Right.
there wasn't any long term vision that I want to become an HR professional. It just happened,
Right.
and many years later, here I am. But in
Right.
in terms of commerce, I think the numbers aspect very recently, last maybe 4 5 years, I've had a liking towards numbers, data, statistics, etc. And I
Mm.
don't know whether a little bit of commerce that I learned many years ago is actually showing up over here. So could be
Right.
commerce as well.
Right. So, alluding to one of the things that you mentioned, right? So you talked about service being one of the paramount things that a hotel industry drives. There are a lot of leaders. You talk about, let's say, Microsoft, Satya Nadella, for example, or Indra Nooyi, and a lot of recent examples that we see today. There's a lot of talk around servant leadership, right? And how critical is that? Let's say, for example, for someone who's heading the entire HR function from a people perspective, what are your thoughts around servant leadership?
I think, yeah, we are here to serve other people and make the company a better place.
Right.
That's the bottom line. I mean, servant leadership are very, very fancy words that have come up. But I think at the end of the day, as an HR professional, you're there to support and to make successful two key constituencies.
Mm.
One is your employees, and one is your customer.
Correct.
While we directly may not impact the customer, indirectly, I think HR has a huge role to play, whether it's hiring the right people, equipping the right people, motivating the right people, upskilling and training the right people. I think that's a very, very important aspect. So we work for our people, and as well
Correct.
as we work for the customer. And whether if that is considered to be servant leadership, then we're right in the middle of it.
Absolutely. Also, want to talk about your career, right? I mean, it's been a very impressive journey that you've had across several organizations, be it Mindtree, now at Harbinger. How have these experiences shaped your leadership style overall?
Oh, I think it's had a huge impact. Um, I'll talk about the last couple of ones because that's where I've spent almost more than 10 years
Yeah,
each. I
yeah,
think when Mindtree was an amazing company.
right.
The culture, I think, was top of the line. Had the opportunity to work with wonderful leaders, some of the founders of Mindtree as well. And
Right.
I think Mindtree is still a part of me. I talk of it very, very fondly. I spent 11 years in the organization. But what was interesting, Ravi, was that 11 years was uh, there were two acquisitions that I was a part of. And
Brilliant.
interestingly, I was the acquired company. So
Okay.
that for me was a tremendous learning cycle for me,
Mm,
because suddenly when a company gets acquired, the people there are kind of worried that what's going to happen with me, how are things going to
mm.
change, is my job going to be secure? And I
Correct.
think I'm very fortunate not to have that once, but to have that experience twice.
Right.
And even better being in the HR side of things, where
Mm,
while we may have had our own insecurities, we had to kind of counsel and help other employees to to kind of feel welcome into the new parent organization. So
true.
that was a great experience working
Mm,
with Mindtree. I was heading
mm,
one of the largest business units of Mindtree. Got a lot of experience, both in India as well as outside India. So I think that was a phenomenal learning experience. I think
correct.
when I joined Harbinger about 10 years ago, Harbinger is a much smaller company, about
Mm,
750 people. But
mm.
here, what was unique was I was given the complete charge of the HR department. And
Right.
here, I must tell you that the culture that the founders had started many years ago kind of
Mm,
still remains to be extremely passionate.
right.
The culture that balances people and that
Mm,
balances the customer as well. So I
right.
think I've been blessed to get an immense amount of freedom to do things that I think would be in the interest of the company. I
Right.
think I've done some great stuff. I think I've not been successful at many things, but I think the good
Right.
thing is you fail fast, you pick up and you move. I've also, I think, been very fortunate to be around during the COVID times. I think
Mm,
that's kind of transformed the way we work. And
mm,
again, the organization philosophy that we had at Harbinger,
mm,
the kind of love and empathy that the founders actually showed to
mm,
the organization and to its employees, right down to the lowest employees,
mm.
really actually shows that the organization cares. So
Right.
right from the early days to COVID to now, I
Mm,
still see that kind of thing.
mm.
Um, I also must acknowledge that it's not only our founders and our leadership team, but I think our
Yeah.
customers also kind of partnered with us during COVID as well. So they
Absolutely.
need a shout out as well.
True. True. So one thing which comes to mind is like, I mean, when you talk about, let's say, the experiences in this space, and you talked about the M&A opportunities that you actually ended up getting. Want to understand, let's say, as a professional who's starting off early in their careers, right? I mean, how do
Hmm.
you? Is there a way to? Obviously, it's difficult to plan. I don't know whether an M&A opportunity will come my way, but is there a way that an HR professional starting fresh can look at navigating their careers, or is there a way to plan this trajectory, or do you just go with the flow? This is just a question around, let's say, look at specialization into a core segment, or we will look at generalization, getting exposed to multiple avenues. What should be the approach according to you?
I think it all depends a lot on the organization you joined, Ravi, and it also
Right.
has some degree of luck that you have down the road.
Absolutely.
Um, I think if you ask me, as a first job, I would prefer to have a generalist kind of a job.
Got it.
Because as a young HR professional, sometimes what they teach us in college and what actually happens on the ground,
Mm,
there is difference. And I
mm,
may come thinking that, hey, you know what, compensation and benefits is a role that I want to get into, and I've been trained for that. but sometimes
Mm.
that can be a kind of a can be different from what you see on the ground. So my
Correct.
suggestion, if I had to do it again for myself, I would probably want to get into a generalist role, and that's actually what I did.
Right.
I dabbled in recruitment. I dabbled in a little bit of HR administration, HR operations. Um, that's actually when you learn the meat of HR, when you really get your hands dirty, when
Right.
you're churning around Excel sheets and stuff like that. And then
Mm.
you get into a slightly more front-ending role as a business HR. And then from business HR, I think you step up and handle multiple roles, including recognition, engagement, comp, and ben. I think, according to me,
Mm.
starting broad and then kind of going all the way up
Right.
is the way I would do it. And like I
Right.
said, if given a chance, I would do it again for myself.
Absolutely. So one intriguing question that comes to mind is whenever you talk about M&As, right? I think there are two sets of people coming together. So what were some of your learnings from? You mentioned that you're part of two of them, and that's a great learning opportunity. And I'm not sure how many of the people who are going to be listening into this conversation would probably get to experience that. So if there were some key learnings that emerged from both these opportunities for you, if you can share that for the community.
Yeah, I think one thing is that when a company gets acquired, many of the employees think that the company is not doing well,
Mm.
and hence the company has got acquired, or the company, if an acquisition had not happened, the company may have shut down. I
Mm.
think most of the times it's not. I think an
Correct.
acquisition happens when a company wants to grow further and has limitations within itself and grows. So I think
Mm.
that kind of communication, I think, is very, very important, because I
Right.
think it's in the well-being of of the employees and their career.
Mm.
If they are keen on growth and getting
Mm.
more exposure to different geographies, etc. I think
Mm.
it's in their interest that that communication really happens effectively. And
Mm.
in both the acquisitions that I've been a part of, this was done extremely well.
Right.
The acquired company never appeared to be superior in nature. It
Mm.
had certain gaps in its service offerings, and hence it felt that there was a strategy, a marriage, if you would use that word,
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
kind of fill that gap. And I
Mm.
think the employees were made to feel that they are special, they have a certain
Right.
unique skill, and this
Right.
is the time for them to expand beyond what they would done. So I think if that actually happens and that kind of communication goes to an organization, the
Mm.
employees within the organization,
Mm.
I think it's preferable.
Right. Right. Fantastic. And that's something which I think I also resonate with as well. I mean, in terms of managing the culture, this again becomes a very, very important process.
It
So
does.
one question now, coming to Harbinger, and of course for our audience benefit, I would like to spend let's say a couple of minutes. So Harbinger provides solution consulting and technology services to various organizations across the world, and services span across enterprise software development and advanced testing services as well. So if you could talk a little bit about Harbinger as a people function, Neville, for the benefit of our community. I mean, the
Yeah,
kind of people that you have. What's the mix looking like?
in terms of the organization.
And the kind of people that you have, the skill sets, and is it like a distributed workforce? If you can
Okay,
probably explain
sure.
a little bit from that context.
Sure, sure. So we're an IT services company headquartered out of Pune. We've got about
Right.
750 people working for us, and what we do is we help our customers who are primarily in North America build HR products. So we're an HR tech company.
Mm,
So we help
mm,
customers build HR software, and this software spreads across the gamut of the HR life cycle, right from
right.
hire to retire. And we've worked with about 1,000 customers. We do a lot of great work. We're on the cutting edge of technology. We see HR technology emerge actually before it actually hits the ground.
Mm,
So I think in that sense, that's the kind of work that we do, Ravi.
mm,
Um, we have adopted the hybrid working model. So we have
right.
a large set of people who are working outside Pune, people who were hired outside Pune. We gave them that commitment. So right now
Right.
they're working outside. We also believe that for folks who are within the city limits, we would like them to come to office maybe a couple of days a week, because I
Got
think
it.
sitting at home has a lot of flexibility, but it also has a lot of disadvantage. It's kind
Mm,
of lonely.
mm,
People don't put on their cameras most of the times,
yeah.
and it's yeah, I think it's a lonely life out there. The minute you
True.
start
True.
coming to office, you meet your friends, you start interacting, you solve problems together,
Mm,
you collaborate, you learn together, you have lunch, you go for a cigarette break outside. I think that's where the trust and camaraderie comes up. I think
Absolutely.
that's something interesting, and we're kind of looking at that at Harbinger. I
Right.
think at Harbinger, I think customers extremely important alongside with people, and we
Mm.
do a lot of work to develop our people internally.
Right.
Most of our positions that we have get fulfilled internally. We have a very robust learning and development system. We
Fantastic.
track people's performance on a continuous basis. We don't do biannual or annual
Mm.
performance reviews. We do monthly
Mm.
check-ins.
Right.
There's a bunch of transparency, and I
Mm.
think we've been really fortunate to work with a wonderful bunch of leaders who have been able to kind of instill our values within the organization. So
Right.
one USP, Ravi, is our culture.
Right.
Very hard for me to explain culture. You got to experience it.
True.
But I don't know whether if Glassdoor is a barometer, then I think a rating of 4.3 is pretty good.
Fantastic.
Can sum it up with that.
Absolutely. So, are you saying that when you say you talked about remote work, of course, right? I mean, and as you said that it's a tough challenge to balance. So, is hybrid the right approach, or it should basically be depending on the maturity levels of the team? What's your thought around that?
I think flexibility and freedom is what people want these days.
Absolutely.
Um, there is no, I don't think there's any compromise on, customer requirement, customer expectation, customer deadlines. There is
Mm,
no
mm.
compromise on that, and employees understand that. But I think
Right.
that employees want a little bit of flexibility. They've
True.
seen tremendous amount of flexibility the last 3 or 4 years, and suddenly switching that off and telling
Yeah.
people, "Hey, come back to office," I think
Mm,
could be a little difficult for people to adjust.
true.
Suddenly, work is not the only priority.
Mm,
Family, fitness, health, wellness, etc. also kind of has increased in intensity. So I
right.
think that, yeah, I think flexibility is something that is really important, and as an organization, if we can provide that, great. I
Mm.
understand that there are some roles, shop floor roles, for example, where you can't have flexibility, you can't work
Yeah.
from
True.
home.
True.
But I think for service industry, if there's a
Mm,
little bit of flexibility, and there is, how would I put it? There's a give and take where there's an element of trust
yeah.
that the employee, when the employee says that he or she is working from home,
Mm.
he or she is actually working from
Actually,
home
okay.
and is available online. And we
True.
totally understand that people may need a couple of hours to go and buy something from the market, take a
True.
quick nap in the afternoon. But as long as people are aware of that, and your Teams or your Slack status is updated, I think that's completely fine, providing customers are not compromised.
Yeah. And I think in countries like Spain and Italy, it's like official that you get a afternoon siesta as part of the day. So yeah, I can definitely imagine that the productivities
Yeah, because
should
in,
kind
in
of pick up.
software, people take calls, calls go until 8
Yeah,
o'clock, 9
eight
o'clock, 10
o'clock. Yeah,
o'clock. Sometimes people have
absolutely.
lunch at 4. It's not
True.
great, always great, but I think that
Yeah,
flexibility helps balance it out.
right. So one question, since you mentioned flexibility as well, one of the things needed for flexibility is like good enough technology to kind of complement it so that things can happen seamlessly. So from that perspective, when you look ahead, right? When you look ahead, how do you see like AI and automation kind of impacting the overall world of talent and even employee engagement for that matter?
I think it's a very interesting space to be in. It's moving very rapidly. I think HR is not at the forefront of AI where it should be right now. There's
Mm,
lots to be done. I think AI has kind of taken over into AI areas, HR areas, for example, in recruitment where chatbots are there or candidate screening profiles happen using automated tools, etc. There's a lot of content that gets curated using AI platforms to kind of give you learning objectives and things like that. But I think
right.
there's more that can come up, including
Mm,
the across the entire the HR life cycle. I think, for example, AI can analyze data coming from various systems in the organization. It could be
mm,
your HRMS system. It could be your reward system. It could be your performance management, your L&D system, your comp and ben system, and
mm,
actually synthesize and share insights. For example, which kind of projects am I most likely to succeed in? Or
right.
which kind of a manager would I have a best relationship, a working relationship with? I think
Mm,
those are insights that actually can really help, really help out personalization for a particular health plan
mm,
based on my family or my the kind of work that I've got or my current salary level. I think that's the element that I'm really looking forward to, of building a personalization
Right.
that otherwise would be possible, but it would take a long time. But using
Hmm.
AI, I think these are things that can really get accelerated.
Right. And I think it obviously has a strong way that it can actually impact employee experience. I want to ask you this as well because Harbhajan has won several awards for employee experience as well. So how do you maintain that positive culture, right? And while doing that, at the same time, scaling up with new technologies as well. If you could share some insights for the organizations, because Harbhajan has won several awards in this space.
I think it's kind of going back to the basics. I think sometimes we really complicate employee experience, employee engagement. We use very, very fancy words, but I think it's coming down to the basics. And let me just
Yeah.
give you a very simple example of employee engagement. I mean, if you
Mm.
Google employee engagement, you'll figure out you'll get a plethora of
Yeah.
kind
Yeah.
of stuff for employee engagement.
Correct.
It's very simple. It's like a couple getting engaged to be married. They
Mm.
don't know each other. Suddenly they get engaged. The
Yeah.
conversation of theirs suddenly goes to a different level. They start talking more. They start sharing things that they like. They start sharing things that they don't like. They share
Mm.
expectations with each other. When
Mm.
things go well, they're in it together. When things don't go well, they're still in it together. They have comfort of talking to each other, sharing stuff, common likes, etc. I think that's what engagement is all about, right? I mean, if you can have this kind of a very, very simple culture within your organization,
Mm.
where employees are encouraged to talk, they know that whatever suggestions they give, all of it may not be possible to achieve, but at least that
Mm.
culture where people feel heard, they're seeing
Right.
value. They may not be getting paid the best in the market, but they feel they're getting paid fairly.
Mm.
They have opportunities for growth. They feel respected. They feel valued. I think that's what really makes a difference. And
Right.
I'm kind of very proud to say, Ravi, that Harbinger does many of these things very successfully.
Yeah.
So I believe we're a good company.
Right. Absolutely. And it's a testimony to the awards as well. And congratulations to the team for having won those accolades.
Thank you so much.
See, you've always been a strong advocate for continuous feedback, right? And I just want to understand from you, let's say, how has technology, including Darwinbox, how has it helped you implement, let's say, real-time feedback systems at Harbinger? If you can throw some light, because that also be relevant for the audience here.
Yeah, I think I'm a strong advocate of continuous everything, not only feedback,
Right.
but continuous recognition. Everything I think works. We live in the
Yeah.
the Instagram
Instant
world.
gratification. Yes.
Yeah, we post something on Insta, and the next minute we're looking, oh, how many likes have I got? How many people have checked it out? Same thing happens on
Correct.
LinkedIn, right? No one's
Correct.
going to wait for 3 months and come back and say, oh, how many likes have I got? So I think in terms of continuous feedback, we don't do traditional performance reviews anymore. We've
Mm.
designed our own internal software called Polestar, where we do continuous check-ins on a monthly basis.
Right.
Goals are rated. We have short-term, long-term, custom goals.
Mm.
Managers and the employees have dialogue around the goals. And what is beautiful is the aspect of transparency. So
Mm.
rather than waiting for 6 months or 9 months to see what your score is, your employees can actually see that on a continuous basis. And I think that's the essence of the matter. And if you ask me, is it kind of working? Our
Mm.
employees like it. One data point that I can tell you is in a recent ESAT survey that we ran,
Mm.
our ESAT scores on the question, how do you like the performance review process, went up 50% as compared
Wow.
to when we were using a legacy system. So I think that's one aspect
Fantastic.
of that needs to be looked at.
Right.
Recognition delayed is recognition denied. So I think
True.
that's also another aspect where really recognition works well. I think using the recognition platform of Darwinbox, we've been very, very successful in that. I just
Right.
had a meeting with the Darwinbox team earlier last week, and I was
Yeah.
told that I was kind of surprised, honestly, that in the last 4 months, 87% of employees have received some kind of recognition
Fantastic.
in the last 4 months. So if I actually extrapolate that to 6 months, I'm pretty sure it'll be 100%. So
Right.
100% of coverage of people on a continuous basis is great. I think when technology really enables that,
Right.
that's great. But technology is an enabler. I think
Mm.
also the personal touch and the personal value of saying thank you, things like that, appreciating people in a team meeting or a stand-up meeting on
Mm.
the spot. also makes a lot of difference.
Right, right, absolutely. So one thing that I want to now talk about is obviously we've been privileged to work with Harbinger over the years, and it's been a great journey. And there's been a lot of good work that has happened. So just want to also get your sense in terms of like how let's say Harbinger has leveraged Darwinbox to transform or let's say bring about digital transformation in the organization. If you can share some success stories around that.
Sure. We've For the last many years, we've always had an HR system. It's not that we
Mm,
were without an HR system. Um, and the last HR system that we had, which Darwinbox actually displayed, was a very large software that really was not too user friendly, in my opinion.
mm,
I think when Darwinbox came in, I think we've seen a lot of simplicity that I spoke about
yeah,
earlier. I
right.
think it's getting the basics right.
Mm,
It's also enabling the admin of the person within the organization to kind of make changes rather than going back to the company and saying, "Hey, can your professional services teams help me?" That's one.
true.
So I think simplicity is one. The other
Mm,
aspect is I think we're very very happy with the mobile feature that is there on Darwinbox.
right.
Um, I think mobile is probably more adopted as compared to the desktop application, whether it's applying for leave or regularizing your attendance or giving a badge to somebody or checking out what's happening on Vibe. I think we've
Mm,
been very, very fortunate to have a great adoption of the mobile platform. So that works for us extremely well. I
right.
think also the system kind of intelligently nudges people for various workflows that take away a lot of operational bandwidth from the HR team. Very
Yes.
simple example, Ravi, is auto confirmations. Right, the
Right.
manager continues to get nudges time and time again. After which the confirmation happens.
Correct.
Good or bad, that's
Mm,
contextual, but I think that's where a lot of operational load has been taken off the HR team as well. So these
mm,
are some aspects. I think obviously the recognition platform is excellent. I
right.
spoke about the success stories that we have got in
Mm,
recognition.
yeah.
And lastly, if I really have to put my finger on one thing, it's Vibe. I think we've
Okay.
been extremely successful at using Vibe. We
Right.
use it as our intranet, our communication mechanism, and we do a bunch of stuff on Vibe. Um, we run polls, we run surveys, we run customer stories, we run engagement modules that we have, and I think we leverage it very, very usefully. And I think employees pretty much love it. I think it's one of the most liked modules that we have currently running off Darwinbox at Harbinger.
Right. So Friday, it's Friday today. Anything interesting going on Vibe today? Anything, is this Friday special for Vibe in
We had
Harbinger?
a so I'll tell you what happened. Something happened last week. We ran a
Okay.
poll. It's I'm in Pune and it's raining pretty heavily.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
we ran a poll on Vibe to say that what's your most famous monsoon evening snack?
Okay.
And we got a bunch of people who said vada pav, all that kind of all that lovely stuff.
Right.
And yesterday, what we had is we had the most liked snacks served in the office. So it was like
Okay.
you told us what you'd like, and here we are serving what we like. It's
Brilliant.
a very small and very trivial example, but
Right.
that's
Right.
some of the ways that we have fun. We had a Garba, it's Navratri going on, so we had a Garba
Yeah.
show yesterday. Pictures of that have
Nice.
gone up on Vibe. We've got a whole bunch of likes already kind of flowing in. We use it, Ravi, for innumerable use cases actually.
Fantastic, fantastic. And I guess that kind of builds the camaraderie as well, right? I think because even if you're not part of the event as such, I mean, since it's a sharing culture, it automatically gets percolated to the others who could not make it also.
Yeah, beautiful. And it also helps us engage effectively with our people who are working from home, who are
Right,
permanently working
right,
from home. So they actually see what's happening in the organization. They can participate in these kind of things. They get a lot
right.
of information about what's going on also.
Correct, correct. True. So I think overall, if you were to kind of sum it up, I think obviously allows you to kind of continuously engage with your employees ongoing, right? I mean, that's one of the critical elements of, let's say, building that culture as well. So one thing which I wanted to ask you about, I mean, given your experience extensively across multiple segments of HR, uh, if there was an advice that you would like to give the changemakers community, right, to stay ahead of the future trends and how do they look at driving business outcomes? And of course, the changemakers community is all HR professionals. So, what kind of an advice would you give to the community to stay ahead in terms of a lot of things that are happening across multiple segments today within HR?
I think continue listening is one important aspect,
Right.
because I think every suggestion given by a change maker, big or small, is important for that particular person. So
Mm.
continue listening, and see and prioritize what can be done the best. So in
Mm.
terms of product changes or product implementations, etc. I think that's one.
Mm.
I think also, as a change maker community, how can we be more vibrant, and how can we
Yeah.
discuss stuff outside work? So I don't know
Mm.
whether that's an option that can change makers can actually get into. Once in a while, can there be a competition or quiz or a poll that
Right.
can actually help the community become a little more vibrant?
Hybrid.
And also, uh, we would love to see some of the founders of Darwin Box come online and kind of talk to us or interact with us at times. So I think if
Perfect.
these two, three things happen, it'll become even more vibrant as compared to what it is right now.
Right, right. So I think polls and a lot of those things are happening, but I mean, there's obviously an offline event also coming your way, and we would love to have you join us for that as well. And we have a lot of these founder interactions happening offline. But yeah, I mean, the broader point, as you rightly mentioned, is for the interactions to happen a lot more. But definitely, we'll try and facilitate that. So one thing with your extensive experience also is want to understand where do you see HR tech heading in the next 5 years? Obviously, I don't want to get into the root of like, hey, where do you see yourselves in 5 years from now? That's a what do you say, driven down question multiple times now. But generally, what is your gut feeling on around HR tech? And while we talked about AI quite extensively over the last several years, but the real advent of it has been seen in the last 6 months to 1 year probably. So where do you see HR tech going forward in the next, let's say, 6 years? And what role like organizations like Darwin Box can play in that journey? What's your thought around that?
Yeah, I think there's going to be a lot of people science that's going to come into play right now, and a lot of
Right.
statistics and other kind of models that are going to play, because I think AI is going to throw up a bunch of data that would need to be
True.
synthesized and processed and pushed back not only to the employee but
Mm.
various other stakeholders, whether it's the employee's manager, whether it's the skip, whether it's the L&D team, whether it's the comp and
Mm.
ben manager. So I think
Mm.
synthesizing of data and presenting of data in an easy to read nugget
Mm.
is going to be useful. I don't
Mm.
think that the tradition of um, having elaborate worksheets or charts or pie graphs or those kind of things are going to be there. I think we really want insights that are going to be very pinpointed. So I think
True.
that kind of sense is going to be important. Like I said,
Mm.
we really would love systems to collate information and give us very pointed and personalized advice or
Correct.
suggestions,
Correct.
rather than generalizing stuff for
Mm.
for HR organizations. Like I gave you the example, which kind of projects people would work on better, or which kind of
Mm.
managers would people like to work on better, or how
Mm.
can you customize a health plan for somebody,
Right.
or what in which ways does this person learn better, so that
Mm.
micro nuggets of learning can
Snippets.
be pushed in the flow of work to people. So I
Mm.
think, yeah, I think in that aspect, there's a lot of stuff that should be done.
Mm.
AI is changing at the speed of light. It's progressing at the
True.
speed of light. So I think in the next couple of years, I'm sure we'll have softwares. Darwin Box, I'm sure, is also thinking about these in some shape or form. So it'll be
Right.
really interesting. The next 5 years is way too long. I think next couple of years, we'll be
Couple
really
of
looking
years.
forward to see something like this.
Right. So there's a lot of obviously, I mean, as you rightly mentioned, there's a lot of good work happening within Darwinbox itself, and this is across the products spectrum itself, and not just limited to certain modules. We're trying to weave in AI into every single module, every single function. But just also wanted to ask you, because there is a lot of things to look forward to. Is there a word of caution also with respect to AI? Any thoughts around that?
Yeah, I think garbage in, garbage out is one
Yeah,
thing.
true. Mm.
So, for example, if let's take recruitment, for example, if the
Mm.
recruitment platform is really not getting used to its fullest,
Mm.
and you have superficial data getting into the system,
Mm.
then I believe the LLM models will get trained with not the right kind of data.
Correct.
Similarly, for learning and development, if people are just clocking in hours or not actually taking learning in the spirit of learning,
Mm.
the AI models could get a bit could get a bit wonky in those senses. So the good thing is, I think humans are going to be there as auditors, checkers, to make sure that what data is coming from the AI system actually kind of is making a little bit of sense. And I
Right.
think that's where the analytical skills of the HR professional is really going to get it has to be honed.
Right.
Numbers, predictive analysis, people science, deep thinking. I
Mm.
think that's where the HR professionals start to kind of need to start getting into those aspects as well. Yeah,
Right.
so obviously you can't take everything that AI says on face value, um,
True.
especially if it is dealing with a lot of emotions. That is something that I'm not sure how AI will take into account.
Yeah.
Empathy,
Mm.
emotions, things like that. So
Mm.
those are some areas or precautions that I think we will need to look out for.
Right. Right. So we went on to a slightly sober note. So just to elevate the mood a little bit, I wanted to go through to the rapid fire segment. So if you're ready,
Hmm.
quick fire answer, sir. Let's start off with the first one.
Hmm.
What's the best HR advice that you've ever received?
I got an email from an ex-colleague, not advice, but I got an email from an ex-colleague who worked with us about 3 years ago, and she joined various small and large organizations after Harbinger. She
Right.
said that the learning that she received in Harbinger and the culture and the love that she got not only from her colleagues but the people on the floor really kind of shaped her as a professional. And I
Right.
think that those values that she has got has really held her in good stead.
Right. Right. So that's kudos to you and the team at Harbinger.
It's
Great.
the culture. It's the culture,
Yeah.
Ravi.
Right. Absolutely. And I guess it's always top down, right? And obviously the leaders have a huge role to play in that. Yeah. Okay. Now, if you could switch jobs with anyone for a day, who would it be?
You don't have any easy questions, right?
There are a few coming your way, but uh,
Um,
any thoughts that come your way around this? Switch jobs with anyone for a day. Would it go back to hotel management? I don't know. I mean,
no, it's a very difficult job. Yeah.
yeah, it is.
I would probably switch jobs with somebody fresh out of college
Okay.
to actually to figure out how the fresh graduates actually think right now. It's been a while
Okay.
since I graduated from college, and
Right.
I would really like to know how you know whatever the Gen Z, whatever we call them, really
Right.
thinks, what motivates them, what are their priorities, etc. So maybe a
Right.
fresher.
Right. So, alluding question to that, I mean, obviously, I'm assuming there is Gen Z at Harbinger as well. Is there any specific thing that you do to engage that audience? I mean, they have different, what do you say, wants, and let's say the way they look at it is very different from, let's say, some of the other generations. So, anything
Yes.
specific that you're doing for Gen Z at Harbinger?
Actually, very interestingly, we had a panel discussion that we had in early September,
Hmm.
wherein we had four of our Gen Zs, three who had spent about 6 months with the organization, fresh from engineering college, and one
Right.
who was with the about a year with us.
Right.
And in this panel discussion, they were quizzed about what they like, what
Okay.
motivates them, what kind of
Right.
manager would they like to work with, what are
Right.
some of the things that they've liked seeing at Harbinger, what are some of the areas which they feel we can improve upon, how do they like to
Hmm.
get recognized, what is
Hmm.
important, what are their priorities. um, it was a great session that we had, and the session was actually for our slightly senior managers to figure out that how do you actually deal with
Yeah.
this new generation that is coming in and what's on their mind. So
Right.
the session went on for about 45 minutes. We got a bunch of questions after that. And I think
Okay.
what we also did is we recorded the session, we took the transcript using
Hmm.
AI, we got the learning objectives out of that, and we
Right.
built small micro learning programs and small micro learning nudges that we are
Right.
pushing to our technical leads and our technical managers from time to time, which will kind of reinforce what they heard from this panel discussion.
Oh, fantastic. Fantastic. I think this is a good way to kind of, what do you say, reverse learning, if you would say. I think, yeah, I
It
mean,
is.
connecting with your team makes a huge world of difference, right? So, great. So, is there any myth that you've come across in HR and that's something which you would love to debunk and say, "Ki, hey, this is not true? Anything at all that you've come across in your experience so far?
One thing that I've come across, I don't know, it's not a myth, but I think the kind of fancy phrases that we use in HR,
Yes.
quiet quitting, the great resignation, whatever stuff. I think it's always been there for a while.
Right.
Quiet quitting is simply disengagement that we've been talking around for like years.
Correct.
Great resignation has been there even before the great resignation happened. So I think it's just a kind of fad that is there. And
Right.
sometimes I think that there are some people who want to sound very cool. It does sound cool, but
Yeah.
for me, I think it's just a lot of fluff.
Right. Just go by first principles and solve what is there
Yeah,
to
just
solve
keep
at
it
hand.
simple. I think that's
Yeah.
my mantra basically.
Fantastic. Right. So I think from what I've discussed so far, I would presume that your favorite module is R&R and Y. So I don't see a question coming there. But wanted to put you on a spot. I mean, if you were to point out a feature of Darwinbox that you really like, I mean, any favorite feature of Darwinbox that you have, not a module, but a feature that you really like using whenever you come across that. Putting you on a spot here.
Yes, you are. Um, I like the. I don't know whether it's the right answer, but I like the
That's okay.
feature. I like the feature that. So all offers that go to candidates come via me. So I like the
Okay.
feature of the offer approval that we have kind of built, the workflow that we have built, and I like it because
Right.
it really gives me all information that I need at one point of time.
Right.
Very rarely do I need to go back to the recruiter and say, "Hey, can you please show me this form or can you show me the CV?" It's pretty much over there. I can see
Right.
the entire workflow, the entire steps of the recruitment process, including
Right.
sometimes the photograph that's been taken during the team's call. And I
Right.
think
Right.
that actually is very, very convenient for me. It saves
Right.
my time and it also helps me know that the various steps or due diligence in the process have been followed.
Right.
So I would say that.
Perfect, perfect. So, before we close, I think it's been a fantastic discussion, Neville, and I really didn't sense how much time it was. But to be honest, I mean, it's one of the more entertaining discussions that I've had on the forum so far, and we really look forward to actually seeing the feedback from the community as well. But any parting thoughts to the community before we close the session for today?
No, my only parting thoughts, Ravi, to the community is I think HR is a great space to be in right now. I
Right.
think it's really evolving extremely well, and I think as HR professionals we have to pivot and totally become agile to the new kind of people that are entering the workforce or who've been there for the last 3 4 years.
Mm,
We have to adjust with hybrid working, flexibility. We have to understand that maybe compensation is not a key priority for many people right now.
mm.
It's also, like I've said a couple of times today, I think it's also coming back to the basics and keeping things simple. I think
Correct.
if these 4 5 things are kind of focused on, I think then
Mm.
HR professionals should be on the right track.
Fantastic, fantastic. So on that positive note, sir, I think it was a pleasure having you with us on Know Your Changemakers, and it's always a delight to connect with someone who's like super passionate about the field and also has great insights to share. So it was a delight to have you with us today, and we look forward to meeting you soon in person and maybe part of multiple other events that we're planning to do as well.
Thank you
So
so much.
thank you
So,
so
so
much
I
for your
said,
time.
I said at the beginning I was an accidental HR professional, but now I don't think I'm accidental anymore. I think I'm right in the middle of it, right? And I love it.
Right, right,
I'm glad
right.
I'm here.
Right. And with the
Thank you.
interaction that I've had with you today, you're like an out and out people person is what I can sense. And having there is also lucky to have you there. So thank you so
Thank you so
much
much.
for today and thanks for
Thanks,
your
Ravi.
time. Thanks.
Thanks for having me.
Pleasure.
Bye bye. Bye.